Okay, so welcome to Taking Care of Business. It's wonderful to have you. I feel very honoured to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie.
So I'll just do a introduction just so the audience understands what a multi-talented businesswoman you are. Although I don't really think you need an introduction. So, Sarah, you are a multi-award winning international disputes lawyer and multiple business owner. You are the founder of Soul International, which is a thriving legal consultancy. You have a lucrative property portfolio, a fashion brand named Sarah Sarah Malik Lifestyle, which services include bespoke mentoring, strategic consultation, operational advice, collaborative partnerships, and PR relations. You are a devoted mother of two, published author, lecturer, international speaker, and board member. You have a podcast, Sarah Straight Up, which is your unfiltered thoughts featuring honest conversations with guests about life, hustle, and the stories in between. It's the podcast that tells it like it is and inspiring while at it. Now, I'm very happy that you are on Taking Care of Business podcast to, do the same kind of thing, but we're going to focus on you today. Now, I've just gone through all of the businesses that you have founded and run. And although they are different kind of businesses, there is obviously one common denominator, which is you. So during the course of the next 60 minutes, I really want to zone in and find out what it is that makes you, you, which is clearly a force to be reckoned with. So why don't we start off by going right back to the very beginning and why don't you just talk a little bit about your childhood and teenage years? Where did it all begin?
Thank you. Firstly, thank you, Stephanie, for hosting me. I'm very honoured to be here today. Going back to the beginning, I come from a large family. I'm one of 5 siblings. We grew up in northwest Manchester, and we had a lot of fun. We were loud. We were very loving, still are, a large extended family, and very, very close. So I have a number of uncles, aunties. Everybody lives within about 10 minutes walking distance of each other. And my early childhood and teenage was just a lot of fun. Our family is very business oriented. Most people had their own businesses. My parents were in fashion, still are, fashion and in leatherware. Uncles, aunties, lawyers, cousins have gone on to kind of become doctors. But childhood was just a lot of fun. That's all I remember. We didn't have many friends because we were about 30 cousins the same age. And we'd all hang out on the weekends, like we'd all get together. So I grew up in an environment that was kind of very open, very loving, very loud. That's what I remember. And just a lot of fun. And my early years, I think when you grow up in an environment where you feel safe, secure, there's positivity, you're encouraged, it makes you who you are. And childhood years were some of the best years of my life, I have to say.
That's really lovely to hear. I grew up in a somewhat large family, and I can really appreciate how, I suppose, having to, I don't want to say scream or shout over the others, but, you certainly got that confidence building by putting your point forward. But no, it sounds like you have had such a lovely upbringing, which has made you
We
the
were a
person you
team
are
and we
today.
still are. And I think that's what's most important, that, you come together. And there's that saying is, individually you can go fast, but together you go far. And that's a mantra that our family holds. And I try and instill that in my own children.
I love that. So you have built such a rich and varied career. Looking back, was there ever a perfect moment to go after what you wanted, or have you always created that moment for yourself?
Definitely, there's never in life a perfect moment for anything, for your business, for your work, thinking of a relationship, what to do. You have to just go with it and make it work, right? If you wait for perfection, you'll be waiting forever. There's always a reason not to do something. I've gone with what I felt. I've gone with when timing's right for me. Might not have the perfect kind of a background in terms of, is this absolutely the right time? But I've gone with a gut feeling. I've gone with a purpose. I've gone with a passion. I've gone with an intention. But no, there's no one single moment where I decide, oh, I'm going to do this now. It's just a feeling, a flow that I go with. So there's never anything in my mind such as the perfect moment. There's never anything in my mind such as the perfect work-life balance. It's all great to think about, but the reality is you make your life the way you want to, and you take an opportunity, and there's never the right time. You've just got to figure it out as you go along.
Do you think there's ever a wrong moment then in life to do something?
Possibly, but you're not going to know until you've done it. And I don't think there's a moment that should stop you from doing something on the fear of now's not the right time. You can do it and live
Yeah,
to maybe
yeah.
think, oh well, I
That's a
tried it,
great
didn't
lesson.
work. Let me try the next, rather than not do it at all. So if the wrong moment is because you're too overwhelmed with, when I set up, for example, the fashion business, and I'm looking at another venture as we speak, that wasn't the right time to bring two to the forefront. So I put one back slightly because I needed to get the fashion business going. So that would be, in inverted commas, a wrong moment. But it doesn't stop me from doing it. I've just put it back for a while. So you've got to have some kind of emotional intelligence and thought process in what you're doing. But is there ever a wrong moment that lasts forever? No. Try something and live to fail and get back up and do something else and not try it at all.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes you a stronger person when you get knocked back and have to
Absolutely.
come back. It just creates that resilience. I was
Exactly.
listening
Every
to,
knockback is an opportunity to go forward, right? And
yeah,
everybody who's succeeded has faced knockback in life somewhere down the line.
oh my God, yes, I can absolutely talk to that. But no, I was listening to a Jay Shetty podcast the other day, and one thing that really stuck out to me was he quoted somebody else. I can't remember who he was quoting, but he said, "You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great." And
100%.
that just really resonated with
And
me.
there's other leaders who say just take the opportunity and figure it out. If you're capable of doing, 40, 50% of something, you'll figure the rest out. You
Yeah,
don't have to be, oh, I don't have 100% of this skill set, so I can't apply for that job or I can't do that. Rubbish in my
yeah,
mind. If you can do the fundamentals, go.
yeah. Love it. I think there's a real art to making a mountain out of somewhat of a mess.
Absolutely.
So you practiced law in the UK for 15 years before founding Seoul International in the UAE. What inspired that leap, and what were the biggest challenges in transitioning from barrister to business founder and CEO?
So yeah, I was in chambers in London, so I was self-employed from day one, from when I started my career. And then when I came to Dubai, actually, before I founded Sol, I did work in international law for about 3.5 years. And I founded Sol because I saw a niche in the market. I saw clients wanting almost like a barristerial approach. So somebody who takes responsibility of a matter from start to finish. It's not big law approach where there's 5 people on any given matter at any given time and lots of fees. It's more of a kind of boutique practice. And I saw that niche in the market where clients wanted that. They were willing to kind of pay, but they wanted that certainty that one person is going to be responsible and be writing the letters and doing the advocacy and holding their hand throughout the whole process. So it was almost akin to, and it's even ran today, almost like a barrister's chambers where I have the barrister and I have a bunch of juniors. So I saw that niche in the market, and having been self-employed at chambers in London, I wasn't rewriting, the script. I wasn't reinventing the wheel. I'd done it. I know what it takes to gain clients, gain credibility, trust, maintain relationships. And I saw an open opportunity in Dubai to do that. I don't want to be big law. I don't pretend to be big law. And, I respect big law a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's not for me. So I purposefully set out to have a boutique type practice. The shift from being a barrister to business owner, a lot of fun. Again, you just figure it out. I know I can do the work. As a barrister, I had and I still have like tax returns, and I have, invoicing, and I have to manage a diary. So I had to kind of scale that up and do that for a business and for others and learn as I went along. How difficult can it be? I can do the basics. I can do the law. I can do the branding, and then I need to figure everything else out. So I never took it as, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? It's like, this is going to be fun. Like, let's see how we start and where we go. And we started off almost as coffee shop lawyers, and we are where we are today.
Incredible story. So just talking a little bit about, you were in chambers, you're a barrister. I think that some people a little bit removed from the industry may think that barristers are they work in dusty old chambers. They don't leave their chambers, their room. Somewhat unsociable people. Now, worked in a barrister chambers myself. I know that that's not the case, and I know that they go out and hustle for their business because, as you were saying, they're self-employed. They have to somewhat do their own marketing or business development because it is them that they are winning business for. If somebody is, either a barrister or a reserved person, not saying that barristers are reserved, but, a barrister that may be a little bit reserved, wants to go out and follow in your footsteps, but lacks the maybe the courage or the social element that you have. Do you have any advice for them to build that up?
Absolutely. It doesn't always have to be that you're out and about on the scene. You need visibility. Write about things. Join networks, join groups. It's socializing, networking. It's not for everybody, right? It doesn't come naturally to people. And some people, don't like that. And they came to law to do the law, to draft, to plead, to advise, to, analyze, to assist, but not to kind of be on the scene. And that's okay. But you have to find a way that you are visible, especially as a barrister. Now, if that means you start writing about something, you start teaching, then do so. But sitting behind a pretty desk and waiting for, you know, papers with ribbons around them, that's okay if you're in a huge chambers and there's a workflow. But even so, I would say you need to build your own brands. Don't hide behind your chambers. You need to be recognized for who you are. Today, if we think of the best litigators, we don't necessarily think of the chambers. If we think of names, the top KCs, the top judges, we know them by name because of who they are. They've built a reputation. And as a barrister, I think, or even as any lawyer, you need to have that credibility and you need to be visible and you need to be seen as somebody who's leading the script, leading the narrative. And you could do that by writing. I mean, it takes nothing to write an article, have it published, put it up on your LinkedIn, send it to an organization, send it to a publisher, start to be recognized for somebody in a field. If going to an event is not for you, I think there's always a way. Some people are lucky, they just want to sit behind, they get lots of work fed to them, but they're never going to own their own space unless you really get out there and become visible in whatever medium works for you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you have said that law is something that you have to be somewhat obsessed with. Have you ever tried something that wasn't quite right for you? And how did you know when it was time to let go?
So I think maybe not professionally, but personally, yes. And I think you kind of figure out when the red flags are time to let go. But I think we'll always try things that, might seem like a good idea. I've taken on positions I should probably have not taken for time constraints. And then I've realized, and I've nicely and in a very polite manner been able to let go of those by saying, I'm sorry, I don't have the time commitment that's needed. So sometimes I think, you can think you can do too much. There will be mistakes you make. There will be wrong decisions. But the most important thing is being able to recognize it and get out of it and own it. Don't shy away from it. Now I'm stuck. I have to do this forever. No, you don't. If you're able to exit, and it doesn't affect your credibility, it doesn't affect your ability as a lawyer. If you decide, well, actually, this isn't for me, I'm going to pivot or I'm going to reestablish, or I'm not going to be able to do this, or I can't commit. The intelligence and the maturity is being able to admit that to yourself and fix it. You have to have a solution. You can't just walk away from things or, have wrong decisions without fixing it. I always say to my juniors, if you come to me with a problem, bring me a solution. That's what lawyers do. And I think you should have that throughout your life in any aspect that you look at, and also own your mistake or it will own you.
I really like the word that you used as well, pivot and not give up, because, as you were just saying, I'm only repeating things that you just said, but if you decided to take a path in life and it's no longer working for whatever reason, just because you're no longer following that path that you thought you were taking doesn't mean you're giving up. You're just pivoting to the one that is now the best option.
Absolutely. And I think what holds us back, Stephanie, is not so much what you want to do, but the thought of, oh, what's everyone going to think? Oh, I failed at that. Oh, she couldn't do that. Oh, she's not any good. And when you let go of that, what others are going to think, and you're not determined and your value is not based on what others think, it's about you staying true to yourself. I think then there's a kind of liberating freedom, and you do tend to then make the right choices, because when you're constrained about worrying about what everybody else is going to think about what you're doing or changing, you get stuck in a rut and you're not living authentically for you.
In the day and age that we live in now with social media, and I suppose I might be generalizing or stereotyping, but people wanting what they see, from Instagram or whatever. Is there a way that you would recommend people to disconnect from that and staying away from all of that background noise and focusing on what they want and not letting any of that noise in?
100%. Look, firstly, everything on social media, 99% of it is rubbish, right? When I say rubbish, I mean you show your best angles. I'm as guilty as anyone. You'll see a picture of me on Instagram. There's probably about 10 that haven't gone up because they haven't made the cut, right? That's how Instagram works. It's not about showing the reality. It's about showing, hey, I look great or I'm doing great. In LinkedIn as well, it's fantastic as a professional platform, but all you get to see is the reality of, someone doing something, speaking, advocating. I'm not saying that that's nonsense or that's not true, but you see the best of the world. What you don't see, and nobody shows, is the journey. And this is why podcasts like this are important. And this is why I set up Sarah Straight Up, because I was fortunate to be interviewed worldwide about my journey, about who I am. And I kept saying, guys, there's a lot more behind it. It's not just about where you see me on a flight or on an international stage or, founding businesses. The burnout, the journey behind closed doors, it's all very real. And I think people can get carried away with this. I want the perfect life, or I want what he wants or she wants, or to be where he or she's at. And they have no idea, number one, whether it's all staged or fake. Number two, what it's taken to get there. The years or hours or weeks or months of hustle and hard work and tears and sweat and not sleeping. And I think social media, it's addictive. There's a dopamine factor of, oh, how many likes have I got? Am I popular? But your worth is not on that social media. Some of the most successful people are actually not on social media, right? And they never would. And I respect that as well. I do think as the generations come through, it's almost become a way of life. Social media has become the norm. Growing up, we read newspapers and we got to know the news. Now you turn to Insta and you turn to LinkedIn. But for those who want that and think that that's, I'm lesser of a person because I'm not achieving X, Y, and Z, all I'll say is, look, keep it real. That is not the sum all of what that person is. There's so much more you don't know, and you will get there, but you've got to put those hours and that journey in that these people probably have.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, I could you have accomplished so much and you do so much. And I mean, I've just started off my training contract at an international law firm where the hours are, renowned for being,
Good
well,
luck.
thank you. And I mean, I do my podcast on my days off, and it is hard work. But I think that when you find something that you're really passionate about, it should give you that energy. But at the same time, we're all human beings and we all need, a decent amount of sleep. I'm trying to train myself now into having being okay on 5.5 hours sleep. I don't know how sustainable that is, but yeah, no, it's hard. But I think the advice that you have given and you give, in your podcast and all the other interviews that you do are really great. It's really fantastic to hear somebody that has achieved so much and is doing so much be real and, say that it's hard. So yeah, thank you. um, Now, again, you have said, and we were chatting about this before we started recording the show, but you don't like being put in a box. And to be honest, nobody should. Your ventures span law, property, fashion, mentorship, strategic consultancy, operational advice, partnerships, and PR relations. With so many projects, how do you stay focused? For me, I think that you have super laser focus. Um, Tell me if I'm wrong. I really don't think I am. Is this something that you've always had, or have you had to cultivate it?
I've always been very kind of disciplined with time, disciplined in my approach, and very kind of organized. And I think that's key, right? And consistent. So every single business I have, there's lists, there's teams, and everybody knows what everybody's doing. There's accountability, and I'm surrounded by great teams. But at any given point, if you're saying to me, have I got the fashion, the lifestyle, the property, the law all going seamlessly at once? Absolutely not. Sometimes you're giving more time to one business than the other. It doesn't mean the other one's lacking because there's still a team. But I let go of thinking everything has to be absolutely perfect 100% of the time in across 5 different businesses and the children and my travel and my, because if you live like that, you're never going to achieve what you want to achieve. And what I aim for in terms of trying to keep everything afloat is empowering individuals in the different businesses to be able to run, seeing, and putting in lots and lots of hours. I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, I do a 9 to 5 and then I'm able to chill. There's been weekends where I've worked 20-hour days and I do what I have to do. But then equally, I know there'll be some downtime when I get that. And I think when you're starting out in your career, and you as well, Stephanie, now you're a trainee, yes, you do put all the hours in. I'm not going to lie to you and sugarcoat it and say, you'll just do a 9 to 5 and you're going to succeed. You have to give up certain things at certain stages of your life if you want success. And if that means the longer hours and the sleepless nights, and sometimes, things take a toll, but that's all part and parcel. You need to know when to pull back. Successful people work while you sleep. They save while you spend. They then, put all the hours in, and then they live like you dream. There's a mantra to doing what you do, right? There's a while people are partying, they're studying. So no successful person does a 9 to 5. If you look at the top athletes, you look at singers, you look at any discipline, they're putting in hours when others are chilling. And that's what differentiates. It's not for everyone and it's not a criticism. And managing time is the biggest problem because, guilt comes in, emotions come in, but you've got to be quite clinical. And you've got to learn to say no as you grow up and you go through the ranks. And I'm at a stage in my life where I say no more than yes, even to things like this podcast, even to interviews, even to features, even to kind of appointments, because I'm very, very precious about how I spend my time. It's the most important commodity.
Thank you for sharing that. I love everything that you have just said, and thank you for taking your time out to speak to me. I think that you have to be you have to have such strength to be able to go into work on a Monday morning and people ask you, how have you spent your weekend? And to continuously, week after week, saying, you know, I stayed at home and I focused on my whatever project it is. Because just going back to the whole social media thing, or I don't even think it's been since the rise of Instagram. I think it's kind of always been the same. We have this innate need to tell people what we have done over the weekend, and it has to be exciting and fireworks and we went to this concert, this and this. And to have a mindset of not giving a hell, I think that you have to be quite a strong individual and really, really want what you're going after. And maybe that's why there are only what the proportion of, I don't want to use the word successful people because everybody's got their own definition of success, but people that have built things and achieved the goals that they are going after in a much shorter time than other people that have got, you know, this ambition, but it's just a slower pace. And yeah, I just think that saving while you spend, and I'm gonna listen back and write everything that you said about that quote down, because you know it's just it
Work while they
really,
party,
you know,
and while they sleep, study while they sleep.
yeah. That was a very important message. I've been reading a book by Tim Grover called Relentless, and it talk on a chapter now where they're talking about focus. And Tim Grover was the trainer to Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and all the, you know, great basketball players. And he says that, you know, the difference between people like Kobe and Michael and the others is that they have got this laser focus, and they don't use the quotes like it's a marathon, not a sprint. It may be a marathon, but they're still sprinting towards it. They're not going to be distracted by this or this. They're not going to go out partying. They're going to say what they're going to do what they said they're going to do. And I think that, you know, if you really want something in life and it's worth your time and energy, you know, you just have to go for it. And you have clearly done all of that. So, talking about, you know, the fashion side, creativity and personal brand, I'm especially intrigued by your fashion journey. What led you to study fashion law at the Milan Fashion Institute? And how did that evolve into launching Sarah M?
So I come from a background of fashion. My parents still are in fashion, and growing up, they had a retail production, and my father was sold in bag and warehouse. So I would go often with them on the weekends, when they'd go on buying trips, and I loved it. I loved the kind of hustle in the warehouses, the factories, seeing the jackets, seeing the ladies wear, and I was mesmerized. And also growing up, I loved dressing up. I loved clothes. My mother is a lady who sews. She's of impeccable taste. She'd have our clothes flown in from abroad when it was Eid or parties, etc., and designed them specifically. So my sister and I grew up, and then with my father in fashion, everything, every time something dropped, we had it. So from a very young age, it was cultivated. I went to a very traditional profession as a barrister, but I never lost that flair. And even when I was at the bar in London, and I always, kind of dressed quite well, I'd like to think. People say, "Oh, you should dress the bar. You should dress the bar," because barristers are very, very clever, but they're known to dress sometimes in an oversized Marks and Spencer suit, because they're just very, very clever people, but they're not that focused on the aesthetics. And then when I came to Dubai, I was able to, if you like, wear a more summer wardrobe, even for a legal profession. And people started to borrow my clothes a lot. Sarah will have a dress, whether it was staff, whether it was colleagues, whether it was, friends. Sarah, I've got a gala dinner. Sarah had this. Do you have something? And I will always have something in my wardrobe. So again, it became a thing of, oh, Sarah, you're in the wrong profession. You should be in fashion. You should be styling people. It's always been a passion of mine. Friends, if they're going to a dinner, can you choose me something? Can you tell me what I should wear? Can you, what would look right on me? And within 5 seconds, I'd be like, there's your dress. They'd be like, I've been looking on the website for an hour. Anyway, as I got more time, I decided I'm going to venture out and actually do fashion law, because I started to get mandated as well in terms of fashion, helping out fashion businesses, setting up in the UAE, issues to do with employment law. And it was a natural, organic kind of move. And I saw this great course, and I actually did it, Stephanie, while I was traveling. I was in London, I was in Zanzibar with my children. And I did the course at night. It was an online kind of 4 or 5 hours each day. And I did it at 10 till 2. As the kids went to bed, I studied. And then I'd be back up with them, like, 6, 7 in the morning, and doing the pool and doing everything we need to do. And I'd, sit sometimes by the pool and look over notes. And then I had an exam where I put them in the pool and, were playing. And I said, I'm just here, I could see them. And I'm just going to do this exam and I'll be back out. So that's what I mean about where you really have a will, you make it happen. I didn't care that I was on holiday. I didn't care, that it was my downtime. I really wanted to do this. And the reason I did it is because even though I'm a strong believer in, you can do different areas of law, you can pivot, you need to have a background. You can't just pretend you know an area unless you have some credibility in it. And I wanted that credibility. I went on to ace the exams, and I think they were very surprised because I hardly turned up to lectures because I did it all online after hours. And I think I got like 97% or something and a distinction and merit and the highest in the class. And oh, wow, Sarah. And I was like, no, look, I've been practicing forever. So if I didn't get that mark, there'd be something wrong. And then since then, actually, and things come full circle, I'm now the president of the alumni of the Italian Institute of Fashion Management, and I'll be teaching fashion management and fashion law in Milan, in Italy. I've been appointed to a guest lecturer. So it's fantastic. It's all come round. And then Sarah M, which I'll come to talk about later, was founded through Sarah M Lifestyle and an opportunity that came my way. So fashion's been in my DNA from childhood. Fashion law was a calling for me that I always wanted to do. And then that kind of came 360 with setting up the fashion business and now being involved in the academic side as well. I'm being appointed here in Beirut on the Advisory Council for Fashion. So it's all kind of come full circle.
Congratulations. I mean, that is just fantastic. And I mean, it couldn't have been, I was going to use the word given then, but you have earned it over and over again. So many congratulations, Sarah.
Thanks.
So you've spoken about the importance of having an edge or a unique selling point. What would you say that yours is, and does it differ between your other ventures?
I think my uniqueness, and I hope I never lose it, is just the fact that I'm very, very real. I'm very authentic. Whether you're talking to me because you're a client in law or a business partner, or you've come to talk to me for operational strategic advice or mentoring under lifestyle, or you're getting my opinion on a bespoke garment you want, I'm never going to sugarcoat, and I'm never going to tell you something that isn't true just to make the sale or just to get the client. I'm going to say, Stephanie, that doesn't suit you, but I think we need to look at this color or this style for this reason. And I don't think you should buy that because I don't think it's the right piece for you for this and that reason. Ultimately, if you want to buy it, that's fine. But I'll never hold back giving you my opinion, sometimes at my own cost, but it doesn't matter. If it's a client, don't hire me. You don't need to litigate this. Let's sort this out by doing X, Y, and Z. This is what you need to do. Don't waste your money. If it's operational strategic advice, no, you don't need to be spending on X, Y, and Z. You can cut back here to save here, but you do need to train your people on this, this, and this. So I'll always tell you sometimes what you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. And I think that's my USP, that with me, and hopefully you'll see that across reviews or when people kind of give accolades, they'll always say, Sarah's very, very straight. You'll know where you stand with her. She doesn't mince her words. And that's become a selling point because people know that there's realness, there's authenticity. I'm not trying to pretend. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I'm not trying to kind of hoodwink you or give you bad advice or tell you something that I wouldn't want to hear myself. And that's how I try to carry myself in every aspect of my life. I treat people how I'd want to be treated. I tell people how I'd want them to tell me. And I don't kind of think, oh, I'm just going to be nice or pretend because that's what they want to hear. And it's not for everyone. Some people do need to kind of, be sugar coated, and I'm not your person. Simple as that.
Sarah straight up says no to being a yes woman. Um, you're talking about being real. I don't actually think that you can lose that unless something happened in your life that had such an effect that you were no longer the person you were.
It's one of my kind of principle. There's no way around. Like, I will stand alone and say what I feel is correct rather than silence myself to make you comfortable. You don't have to agree with me, and I respect that. And I'm the kind of person that, even with friends, they'll come and they'll say, what do you think X, Y, and Z? I'll be like, okay, you're crazy and boo, this is my view, but you want
Yeah,
to do it, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. I'm next to you. That's me as a person, right? That I'll always give my real advice. You'll know where you stand, but I'll still back you what you want to do. And I think that authenticity in a fake world where everybody's trying to be something else or relying all, too heavily on AI, people like realness. People resonate with it. People trust it. And it's that trust that gets you, places in terms of people connect with you and they rely on what you say and do because they know it's real.
Yeah. I'd 100% agree with you. When I go to any kind of um, aesthetic appointment or into a clothes shop, or if I'm having a training session doing whatever, if somebody says to me like, yes, do this, but no, I don't think you should do this, and they're very kind of direct with me, I'm like, this person knows what they're talking about. I'm gonna like trust them, they're professional, like I'm not really gonna argue with that. If somebody was a bit more softer and was just like, I like I don't feel like you know what you're talking about. So
It's not for everyone though, Stephanie. Some people find it too much and they need a softer approach. Everybody's different. And that's why, you can't be something to everyone, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean it's a fault of yours or there's some kind of problem with you. It's just everybody, thinks differently and needs something different. And there are some lawyers or businesses that are more touchy-feely and that are more kind of, reserved or not as direct. And they're very good as well. And maybe they're the right kind of service for individuals who need that. But I'm never going to compromise that. And if a client or anybody would say to me, oh, I think you're too aggressive or too brash or too direct, I'll be like, this is what you get. And if it doesn't work for you, I totally respect that. But then we're not going to gel because this is the way I am.
if you're not being direct, do you not think that there's room for misinterpretation, and then the client isn't going to get the best advice or direction that they should be getting?
Of course, but then there's always different considerations at play, right? Sometimes cases are taken on because firms, lawyers, they want to bill, they want money. They might know that this case is going nowhere. They might know that this isn't the right way. They might know that this doesn't need to be done. But there's a different consideration. There's overheads, there's bills to pay. And I just think, and I'm fortunate that I'm not in that position where I have to think of, oh, well, I have to take that work because, it needs to kind of pay the bills. And that's why I think being direct is the only way I know. But very often there's other considerations at play where people are not as direct and want to kind of run through the mill and then get to the answer rather than from the beginning. And again, I just to be clear, I'm not like, throwing shade on anyone's approach. The approach that works for me works for a reason. And there's other considerations for others. They do things their way. But I've had, for example, clients who've said to me, you mean I can just get this done through a letter? I'm like, yeah. So why did so and so tell me I need to do this due diligence? I said, you don't. I said, it's good for money making and it's good for lawyers to say that you need to do that, but we don't need to do that. And it's the same where there's been litigation. And I'm like, well, your chances are really low and you're better off doing X, Y, and Z. I'm doing myself out of billing because I could easily just say, oh, I'll do your case. And yes, let's fight it and let's see what happens, knowing full well that with the best will in the world, they're probably not going to win or they're not going to get what they need, yet they're going to spend a lot of money. I can't sleep at night doing that. So I'm like, I'll do myself a disservice, but this is what's right for you. But Stephanie, that's resulted in where I am today because everything we do, I've never had to go and pitch the market. I do lots of, talking and I do lots of thought leadership and I do lots of panels. But all our work, and we have great work, is all organic. It comes through word of mouth. It comes through people knowing you want something straight. You want to know where you're going. You want to know if, you're on the right direction. Go talk to Sarah.
Yeah. You're clearly not doing yourself a disservice, as you just said, because, people value the truth and that's why they come back. And that's why you're that real trusted advisor, because, you tell them the truth. So a legal career alone is demanding. How do you manage your time across multiple businesses and roles?
Look, again, I'll go back to the one of the other questions that we were looking at. Managing my time means I focus, probably razor sharp on what I'm doing at that particular moment. If I'm your lawyer and we're vested in an arbitration or a litigation, or I'm doing a letter for you, I'm all in and I'm doing that until it's done. And that means I might have taken my foot off the pedal on something else, but I'll prioritize and know what needs to be done at that particular time, and knowing the deadlines that need to be met. Am I going to feel guilty that I've not given so much time to another aspect of my life? Absolutely not. I got over guilt a long, long time ago, because that guilt holds you back. When I am with my children, I'm fully vested with my children, right? It's the quality of time I have rather than the quantity. It's not like every single day I'm there all day, all night, and tired. But when I am there and we're hanging out, we're having the best time. When I am doing your work as a lawyer, I'm all engaged, I'm full in. When I am preparing for a fashion show or doing an editorial, I'm focused. And I think managing the time is knowing what's a priority, deadline wise, or what's needed, not overburdening, being able to delegate. And you know what? Sometimes things go wrong and things get missed, and that's okay. I never, ever, ever focus on the problem. I focus on the solution. So if something has gone amiss, I've been double booked or something's gone, it's okay, we'll fix it. Which one can I pull back on? Own it, apologize, make sure people know that, no one's any more important than the other, and fix it. And I say that to my team. I'm like, everything's solvable and fixable, but you have to have that mindset. Don't sit and wade in the problem, because then it becomes a bigger problem. And move on. It's happened. How are we going to fix this? And my time is managed. No, it's not micromanaged, but I have diaries. I have diaries on each business that have tasks, and things get moved around from one day to another and ticked off when they're done. And I always say to my team, if it's not written down, it's not going to get done. I cannot physically remember every single thing I'm supposed to be doing in every single business, and on top of that with the children and my own life, unless there is a system. And that system so far has worked very, very well for me. And I'm religious about getting through the day, doing the tasks, moving over what doesn't need to be moved or doesn't need to be done that day, and just managing as effectively as I can. It's not perfect, and it never will be, but it works very, very well, which is why I'm able to manage kind of 4 businesses and my own life.
Yeah. Do you carve out time for off time? What does off time even mean to you? Or is it the like or is it the fact that you take your off time when your schedule frees up a little bit?
Okay, I enjoy the downtime. If we've got a quiet couple of days in the offices, I'm like, girls, enjoy it and go home earlier and chill, because it's not going to last. We're going
Yeah.
to be doing 20-hour days on the weekend. So
Yeah.
I've got a stage in my life where I know that I should ride out the quiet times and enjoy them. But off time, specific off time, I do try to enjoy an active kind of social life. I'll make time for having dinner with friends or going out on a weekend. Off time, I specifically schedule end of the year. I close the offices. This year we're doing it for 2 weeks. Usually we do it for a week. And that to me is I'm not looking over anyone's work. I'm not checking in. Everything can wait, slides and interviews and everything. I'm on holiday. Now, obviously, if there's a train crash, if there's something, absolutely urgent that needs doing, an injunction, I'll pick it up and maybe, be able to hold the fort until I'm back in. But off time to me, I like to train, Stephanie. I've got back into kind of working out on and off since the age of about 20. I train, I do weights, I do boxing, I do HIIT training, I do strength and conditioning. And that's really important for me. And before it would be off time, like I'd have to schedule it into my diary. And now it's as important to me as brushing my teeth. I have to do it because it's part of being who I am, part of being able to manage where I am, because it's a stress relief for me. It's important self-care. And if I don't do it, then I couldn't manage everything I'm doing, because it's my time to release. And do I feel guilty about, putting in an hour in the gym in the day during a working day? Absolutely not, because it's absolutely essential. I'm not doing it because I've got nothing else to do and I'm fitting the time in. It's essential for my well-being. And I will sometimes go to the gym, shower, and go to another meeting. So off time in itself, I don't kind of schedule in the diary, this is my off time. You'll always see in my diary, kids off school, check with me before booking, or I'll always put into the diary, if I have family in town, I'm having dinners, but I don't schedule it specifically, and I try to integrate it into my life because that's the balance I need. And I think it's hugely important, not just take a chunk out that's my off time. No, I should be able to work hard, play hard as I go through daily, weekly.
Yeah. I'm the same as you. I have to go to Pilates in the morning before I start my day. Otherwise, I don't feel ready for the day. I feel like I've been thrown out of bed into the chair at my desk, and here we go again, like on a conveyor belt. And that's just, I need to be in the right mindset. So totally with
Absolutely.
you on that exercise um, aspect. And I suppose, you having dinner with your friends, your family when they're in town, that I suppose that goes back to what you were talking about, having focus and doing the things that you actually really want to do. You make time for the things that you want to do and you're selective over what you were doing. And, your off time is very precious to you. You said at the beginning of
Absolutely.
this interview, time is the most precious commodity. So choose wisely how you want to spend your off time. But I use like quotation marks like that because time is time at the end of the day, and
I
it's your
understand,
life.
but yeah, I went through a phase when I started out. I used to say yes to everything and have lots of coffees and lunches and dinners. And now it has to be there has to be a reason for it. There has to be a focus for it. I don't have the time. And honestly, like daily, maybe I have 30, 40 requests from people to help them, to meet them, to assist them, to have dinner, to have lunch. I is more than a full-time job. I'd have to recruit a team just to do that. So I'm
Yeah.
very selective in what I do and how I do it. And I think initially, as you start your career, you do take on more because you have to build credibility, you have to build your name, you have to build trust, you have to build space, and then you start to let go. And I think that's the cycles of life as well, generally in everything. You build, 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 and then you start to kind of decrease, decrease, decrease as years go on.
So, you're talking about as years go on. What advice would you give to your 90-year-old self um, today, and vice versa? What advice would you give to your future 90-year-old self?
I think live in the present. We're always looking at where am I going to be in 5 years? And I want to achieve this and I want to do that. And you will. And we all will. You have a focus, you have a mindset. But then we forget to live where we are today. Human nature is this, that you keep growing, you keep building, you keep growing, you keep building, and it's never enough. When do you sit back and be like, I'm good. I'm doing okay, and I'm going to enjoy where I'm at in life. The life I'm living today, when I was a student, I would have dreamed about, for example, right? Or I got this great training contract in this great firm. I'm going to enjoy that. It was something that, law school students are dream of. And I think I'd say, looking retrospectively, is don't forget to live in the present. Don't always look to the future, and don't always, future's not even guaranteed, right? Isn't, look what's around the world, so many different things, health issues, geopolitical issues. Life is not guaranteed, and it's the most precious gift, life and time. And if you don't live it, when what I will tell you is what's guaranteed is nobody's getting out alive, right? And when that time comes, we're not going to remember the deal we struck, or, the fact that we got, our bosses thought we were great because we did overtime. You're going to remember how you lived your true, authentic life, the relationships you made, the love you gave, the impact, the giving back, the fact that you made a difference to people's lives. So don't forget to live in the moment and stop worrying so much about what's going to happen and forget about what's happened. Don't live in the past. This happened to me 10 years ago. I'm never going to get over it. Yes, you are. And you're here. Seasons change. We go from January to December. Kids are born and suddenly they're my own. They're going to be 14 and 12. How did that happen? I blinked. So don't forget to live in the present. That's, I think, the same advice I'd give now or to my 90-year-old self. Live. Don't wait for death. Live each day as it's a gift, right?
Yeah, very important message. So thank you for sharing that. So I've heard as well, whilst doing my interview prep for this episode, you've described yourself as living a wanderlust life. How does that play out day to day? Do you surround yourself with people who balance that energy, or does that ever create friction?
I don't think it creates friction. I think everybody who's in my circle knows me well enough and knows they'll call, where are you? Okay, you're not even in country. A wanderlust life to me, I love exploring. I love traveling. I'm almost a nomad. I don't feel I belong anywhere, but I belong everywhere, right? I still, the cities I need to see and people I need to meet that I haven't yet met or haven't yet seen. And I think just sitting in a rut, sitting in one place would, kill me. My crowd, my people, it doesn't cause friction because when you're in the right space and you're in the right crowd, they accept everything about you. They accept your flaws, your weaknesses, your strengths. They accept you whole because that's what, good friends and humans are supposed to do. So, we understand. And if I've had to counsel or if I've had to travel and they know I'm not going to just like blow them out just for any reason. And those people who are going to start to get offended, oh, but you haven't done it, are not your people, right? Because you give everyone that space. I recently had a birthday, and a number of people came. They were invited, and some couldn't make it, and they were very close friends. I totally understood they're working. I would never be like, oh, but you didn't come to my birthday. No, my friendships are so much more than that. You've got to be able to have the emotional intelligence to know what someone's going through or not to judge them. And you're not in a safe space if you're having to watch what you're saying and doing. And my crowd, whether it's 3 a.m., whether I'm crying, whether I'm laughing, whether I'm succeeding, whether I'm failing, I am me. I am open to be able to pick the phone up, talk to them without fear of judgment. So no, if my lifestyle, if my vision becomes a conflict for people, they're not my people. And to me, it's masalam, we're on our own ways, peace and blessings, but this journey stops here with you, and that's how I've lived my life purposefully and surrounding myself with the people who resonate in the same way I do and understand each other and give that space to each other so that friction doesn't come up. Of course, there'll be issues that come up, but you talk about it. But not that you have to kind of, again, sugarcoat or trip around eggshells to make sure you're not upsetting people. I don't have the time in my life, Stephanie, to think like that. I've just got to be myself the way I am, right? And I can't have the mindset to think, oh, if I do this, that's going to upset her. If I don't turn up there, I don't make that call, alas, no, I just don't have the time.
Yeah. I've got a big smile on my face for anybody who's just listening to the audio to this, because I just think it's such a wonderful way to live your life. You obviously surround yourself with people who you feel like you can live your best life with without offending. If you got a business meeting and they're at the touch of a button, if you never need to cry, laugh, or do whatever else. And I mean, I just think that's lovely. So yeah.
To me, Stephanie, is success
Yeah.
having that crowd around you. You want to ask me what success is? That's success.
Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
like what you can buy, material or otherwise, but having that feeling and having that freedom is success.
Yeah. But I think that to maintain relationships like that, whilst, scratch that, it just goes back to having focus. Don't keep picking up the phone, looking at Instagram whilst you're working on your projects. Sprint that marathon, do what you need to do, and make time for your family and your friends and your loved ones. And I just think that, you've obviously done all that. So
You'll prioritize what's important, and that changes as life goes on. What was important to me probably at your stage or when I was training or 20 is so, different today. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not on the same weighting on the list. And that happens naturally in life. But you've got to look within and know what aligns with your purpose, aligns with where you're going. And any noise from that or distraction, you've got to let it go. It's not worth it if you want to continue in your path. And that's life. But you can't think, oh, what I wanted at the age of 20 is exactly what I want now, at my age, in my 40s. No, absolutely not. And you've got to live accordingly.
yeah. So you've come on to the penultimate question. You kind of alluded to this earlier on in the interview, but what is exciting you right now?
So I'm just really glad that the business, we're 7 years old soon, Charlotte, in the next couple of weeks. So Sol is, right? So 7 years, and it's been a hell of a journey and it's been so much fun. And I'm excited about where we've come and where we're going to go. The fashion business launched in March. We've got something coming up, hopefully in Riyadh. We've been listed in London and LA. We've done a fashion show in Dubai. We've been backed by major kind of a cosmetics house, Kiko, and also Cowder Jewelers. And we've got stuff in the pipeline. So I'm really excited about that. The lifestyle business is going well. It's gaining traction, and we're dealing with more kind of celebrities on the sports side just to help with their business interests. And looking at all of that, I'm looking at another venture at the moment, which I won't speak much about, but it's to do with real estate. And to become more kind of focused and streamlined, because maybe where I live in Dubai, and maybe the fact that I'm heavily vested myself, and as well as being an investor, I'm now going to look into the business side of things, and that's something that's a venture in the pipeline. So that's keeping me busy. But at the moment, right now, what excites me is a trip to Japan in the next couple of weeks with my most favorite little people, the children, where we're just going to get to unwind and do what my son wants to do. So we had this kind of family tradition that each year one person chooses the main holiday, and I just get to pay for that. So this year it's Omar, my son, and he wants to do Japan. So we get to do Japan, and last year was New York with the daughter, and they're already trying to for next year. But mommy, maybe we should go here. Or I'm like, that's my choice. No, isn't that the democratic way? But I'm super excited about spending some really good time with them abroad.
Oh, well, I hope you have an amazing time and happy birthday, Sol. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all the fantastic things that will come over the next course of months or years.
Nice. Thank you so much. Stephanie, what you're doing with this podcast is absolutely amazing. I think the energy, the space you give to people, the authenticity, and you're so kind of young in your career. I know and I see that you're going places. You are somebody to watch in the future, not just in legal, but generally in entrepreneurship. And I will be watching your success, inshallah, and seeing you rise as you deserve to. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Before you go, can I just have 2 words or 3? What does taking care of business mean to you?
Taking care of business to me is about leading with purpose, integrity, elegance, and relentless intent, or that laser sharp focus that you've talked about. You have to show up, you have to build with depth, you have to make room for humanity, you have to always give back as well. And I'm massive about that. And you have to own your narrative, own your space, and own your journey. Everything that comes along with it. That's what taking care of business is.
Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for talking to us and telling everybody how you take care of business.
Thank you, Stephanie, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you. Take care.